I'm not sure how it is when you get outside of your own comfort zone, or you have to do something in an atmosphere that you're not familiar with. My two comfort zones, pretty obviously, are my family and my church. And I must admit, I know I've been here a long time, and I probably act like it, but every Sunday morning and every Thursday night before church, I get nervous. I get nervous as much now as I did back in the 70s. You see, people don't have to go to church. And I'm beginning to realize that most people don't go to church. And I desperately want people to come, but I also hope people, when they come, will come back. And the main reason I get nervous is that I know that every single Sunday or Thursday night, when you walk in the door, you got stuff inside of you. Everything you've been through the past week. Maybe it's something big like living with Alzheimer's or battling cancer or Parkinson's, worrying about your kids, stuff at work. Maybe you have a loved one in rehab and your life is consumed by visiting that person. But you also have good stuff. Maybe you've just been to a wedding. Maybe you shared and just got married, or maybe a child is born, or you won a race, or you did really good in your concert. You come with some victories too. And all I've ever wanted, and I still do, is for our church to be a place, an oasis, a humble temple that will strengthen you during your tough times, and will be a place where you can rejoice when you have an hallelujah moment or a victory in your life. And there's all kinds of churches, there's all kinds of preachers, there's all kinds of religions, but ultimately what matters is somehow knowing that whatever you're going through, that the good Lord is there walking with you, not necessarily making it easy or okay, but somehow in the midst of whatever you're going through, God is there. And that's why I absolutely love Palm Sunday. Think about it. Jesus was a humble carpenter. He was born in obscurity. He only lived to be 33. His ministry lasted 3 years. And yet somehow, in his humility, he changed a lot of lives, some of ours. It's people who felt like they were nobody, he made them feel like somebody. People who felt like they had no position and no power, he gave them a sense of inner power. People who only knew an angry or a judgmental God, and there's still a lot of that going around, through Jesus they discovered a forgiving God, a God of grace and gentle strength. But the religious establishment wanted Jesus out, and his followers knew it. And so on Palm Sunday they had this crazy parade where he came in on a donkey, and people were waving branches. They took their coats off and threw them on the ground. And afterwards, it's not in the gospel, afterwards Jesus went up on a hill, looked over Jerusalem, and he just broke down and wept because he knew the end was near and people were going to be disappointed. And yet somehow he left behind this inner power, a higher power, a life-changing power. So yesterday morning, I am out of my element. I'm standing in front of a packed room of men and women who are part of an amazing organization called Gamblers Anonymous. I remember years ago when Scott Damiani said, "Don, I want you to do the invocation at an open GA meeting." I said, "Scotty, I'm not a gambler. Well, I'm not a very good one, and I'm not one of you. Why do you want me?" And he said, "Well, without knowing it, you do preach this 12-step program." And he said, "By the way, I asked you, you're going to come like it or not." And I went. That visit changed my life. I met a guy named Mike. I met a lady named Peggy, and started kind of a journey with people that had a different path than mine. Well, anyway, the theme of the conference is making the impossible possible. And I get up there in front of this room with my microphone and I say, what's impossible is that somehow you asked me to speak at your conference. I'm not sure why. And of course, people introduce themselves. And if you've ever been to one of those, he says, my name is Bob. I'm a compulsive gambler. That's what they all say. My name is Barb. I'm a compulsive gambler. They get to me. My name is Don. I'm a compulsive Lutheran. And it kind of breaks the ice. But I'm nervous because I'm not one of them. And as I talked, and as I listened, I began to realize I am one of them. I may not be addicted to gambling, but I'm addicted to lots of stuff. Most of all, I'm addicted to myself. I can be addicted to my own journey. I can be addicted to trying to be in control, not just of my life, but the people around me. I'm sometimes addicted to self-centeredness. I'm sometimes addicted to having to do my job my way and maybe not listening enough. And I begin to discover, by listening to and talking to my brothers and sisters in that room, that somehow their journey has set me free. Because, and you probably know what it's like once in a while, when you take the time to step back and immerse yourself in the journey of somebody else beside yourself, it's liberating. Because then you can begin to listen, and you can begin to learn, and you realize that we are in this journey together. And then this guy gets up. He's Jewish. He's from Brooklyn. He's an aging Vietnam vet, and he's got his Vietnam vet hat on. He's got a faded t-shirt, a nice pair of holy blue jeans, scuffy shoes, and he gets up and he says, I don't know what I would do without you in this room. And then he got really honest. He said, I'm getting dementia, and I knew what I was going to say, and now I don't know what I'm going to say. And sometimes I just can't get it out. But he says, it is what it is, and I love you all. And I was so inspired by his honesty, because he stood up there and it was so real. He was so human. His honesty, his humanity, just belting out who he was and how he felt. It's like the whole room was set free, because he had the courage to be honest. And somehow, some way, having the courage to be honest is what God does for all of us. And so I thought about him as I walked into the door of Colonial Chapel later that afternoon to share in a funeral of a young man who died too early because of his addiction to drugs. Before the service, his dad shows me a letter that his son had written to him several years ago. A letter where he said, Dad, I apologize for being such a bad son. I promise that someday I'm going to turn it around. Well, he was never able to turn it around, but he tried. And so when I get back to the church, I see the palm branches in the bucket by the doors. I see the palm plants here in memory of 2 sons that a family lost over the past several years. I look at the prayer book, and the list is already long. I think of that Vietnam vet and his raw honesty on a Saturday morning. I think of all your journeys and all my addictions. I think of a loving husband and a loving wife who both died in April. And I realize that Jesus' parade into Jerusalem is really a parade into your heart and to mine. Amen. If you're able to, please rise for the creed. It's on page 105.